3, 2, 1, go.
Hi, welcome to CGTN Live. I'm Sim and this is my colleague Gongzhe.
Hi everyone.
And we are back at the Media Center of the 19th National Congress of the CPC. A group interview on science, technology and innovation ended here a little while ago, and Gongzhe is going to tell us all about it. So
I watch it all the way along.
Yeah, so tell us, what were the highlights of this group interview for you?
Okay, because I'm a tech fan, so I'm really interested in this press release-like thing. So in the provided material, they said a lot of things related to the achievements that China's achieved in this area for the previous 5 years. Because the Congress is held by a 5-year means, so they summarized the previous achievements in 5 years, and also, but they stopped talking after that. So all the journalists went nuts. They want to know what the party is planning for the China's future, for the future 5 years, because that's definitely more important.
Absolutely.
So they asked loads of questions about this. So I think that is, generally the whole thing happened this afternoon.
And there were some really interesting questions that you talked about. What was it? How China is trying to boost the field of innovation as well, and what kind of impact that's going to have on how people feel about it, right?
Because the innovation area has been one of the things that lags behind in maybe a decade ago. So China's trying to put hard efforts into this area to make more people become more innovative, or to lure out their innovative nature. So after those efforts in the 5 to 10 years, that some of the tech researchers, the top researchers, have been feeling that it is getting better. And they said maybe they're born in a great time, in a great age, because it's getting better. Because in 30 years ago, they would never have such great environment to do their research, because maybe there were more pressure, or maybe less infrastructure, or maybe less money to do it. So, but now with China's economy moving faster, and China's policies is getting balanced to have more emphasis on the R&D. So they're feeling better in China doing their research.
And I mean, we can just quickly talk about some of the people who were on this panel. There was the Vice Minister, right, for Science and Technology, right?
Yeah, he's the minister, the Deputy Minister.
Deputy Minister. And there were also a few representatives from researchers themselves, all delegates, obviously, of the 19th CPC National Congress. And and there was also a woman who talked about also being a female researcher, right, and what kind of opportunities there are, you said.
Yeah, because there were few female representatives that showed up in this room in the first and second days. So there were questions raised specifically to ask her that how it feels like to be a female researcher. But in China, there were many policies specified for female researchers to do their work, like they have the age limitation of researchers that can work in the institute. So if you're too young or too old, it may not be possible to work in the institute anymore. You have to work independently. So this age limit for female researchers is wider. So it's less limited.
Okay, so there are more opportunities now for women also to work in research.
Yeah. So if you want to join the research, so maybe you can join earlier, and you can keep longer.
Okay, well, that's really interesting. So there are obviously efforts going on in that area, and you were also saying that there were a lot of barriers. They were also trying to break barriers between institutes, more cooperation, right?
Yeah, that is also very interesting, because nowadays science research are not that divided than before, because in the old times physics is physics, chemistry is chemistry, but now there's physics-chemistry or things like that. The areas are merging with each other. So these areas in China are managed by different institutes. and those institutes may be busy taking credit. They may be worried if they can take credit out of their research. So in the merge area, so they're not participating actively in these kind of areas. So China is now trying to change that to illustrate a better benefit distribution system, to make sure that the correct money go to the correct person. So just to make the people take the credit they deserve. So this is very interesting. They said, and they said not only money, but also to make you famous. There's a Chinese saying called 名利双收, to take both the fame and the money.
Right, but also, like you said, we're saying it's not just about being successful, because obviously research is trial and error, and you were saying the researchers were also talking about being able to accept if there is failure every once in a while.
Okay, yeah, the failures, because just like you said, scientific expedition is not always a successful procedure. So sometimes people fail at developing their topic. So. China is not known as a country that tolerates such failures, because there may be consequences if you fail your job. But there are some delegates that are asking the party and the government to be more forgiving on this area. So because it's natural that things may fail. So after things fail, there may not be such great consequences, maybe prevent you from doing research anymore. This is unfair. So they're trying to change this situation. So maybe I think there is a law coming to this. But CPC is the party, so the party cannot make the law. So they're just making suggestions. So it will be up to the people, the delegates that are elected by people to decide whether this law will actually go into effect. So that is the whole CPC National Congress thing is about. Party raises suggestions and the people decide if this is right to do.
But that's the interesting thing also, is that the delegates are not just politicians, career politicians, they're also themselves researchers. They're people who know what they're talking about when they talk about science and technology and what needs to be done.
Yeah, this is very this is one of the points that the Science and Technology Ministry is different from all the other ministries, because for other ministries there may be some people who is only specialized at managing things. So people that knows how to manage, but they may not know the thing his people actually doing. But for science and technology, nearly all the leaders have a scientific background. They have their own research. They have their own papers published on the journals. So they were petitionally researchers in the early time. So later, when they become officials, they know what the researchers are really worried about. So they could work at to pinpoint the problem in the system and to make it better in a really efficient way.
And there was also talk about expanding the talent pool and the need to do that, to get more, obviously, science and technology, it's not just machines, you need people and brains behind it to make it good, right? Yeah, because in technology, things like robots are developed, but robots cannot provide ideas yet. So, in a few years maybe.
So researching is still, so the main work of researchers are still done purely by people, by human brains. So China has been, there are a lot of great Chinese scientists, but they may be born in China but raised in America, or raised in China and later went to America for research, or to the European countries, because those countries are better at economy and they have more money or more fund to put into their research areas, and they have better equipment. So, for example, like the CERN. So China don't have the CERN equivalent, so it's not possible to research with inefficient tools.
The CERN being the massive, what is it called again in Geneva? The Center for something.
I don't remember.
I completely forget.
But it's famous for its accelerator.
Exactly, the massive accelerator that's underground between Switzerland and France.
Accelerate particles at a really fast speed to see what will happen under that circumstances. Because Newton's laws Newton's laws work in our everyday objects, but when it comes to particles or large or really large things like the planet, so it may not work anymore. So that could be really important for the scientists to do research about it. And so talking about this, China is now trying hard to build more facilities to provide better environment, to provide useful tools for those researchers, like concerning basic science, like how the world is formed, like how particles move, and how if quarks can be divided, things like that. So or the cosmetic things in the space, to how to launch human onto the moon, or how to observe the gravitational waves, things like this. So China has been in like 5 or 7 years, I don't remember. They're trying to build more and more facilities around the country, because CERN itself has a lot of facilities inside that institute, but China is trying to distribute these equipment across the country. So the country itself become a large institute to do the researches, to let people in different places of the country collaborate together.
And it's already having quite some success, because you were saying a lot of Chinese talent was going abroad to do research because they had more resources abroad. But there was recently, I think it was last year, a Chinese Nobel Prize winner in medicine who did all her research, I believe, in China. So there is obviously a lot of improvement.
Yeah, so it is possible for a researcher that lives in China, do research in China, get the Nobel Prize. So greatness can be achieved in this land. So this is the first proof, and I believe that more and more proof will come in the future, because China is now building even better tools for them to work.
And even just as breaking down barriers between institutes is very important, I think between countries is also very important. One of the things they were calling for was a lot more international.
Yeah, internationalization.
This was the brochure that we got with all the talking points, with all the achievements and the goals that they were
and they are actually making it into English.
Yes, exactly. It's just in Chinese and in English. Very useful. But yeah, so one of the things they were talking about was encouraging more international cooperation.
Yeah, international corporations, like China's working on large projects with different countries worldwide, like the latest discovery of the gravitational wave, the big announcement in the science area that there are Chinese participation in it, because there's a Chinese satellite that is used as a telescope. It's a telescope satellite that could look deep into the space. That this satellite had the best image of this. It's like taking an image scientifically. So it's full of scientific terms, but basically it's taking the image of the gravitational wave. So the Chinese satellite took the highest resolution image to provide support to this Einstein's theory.
Oh, wow. So obviously a lot of breakthroughs also happening here in China, and that's very interesting. And China has the resources now, and it's such a huge country, obviously, so the talent pool is going to be a lot
so
bigger.
If China decided to put those resources into this area, so it seems like things can come out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even we can look at even just the space program, how quickly China has evolved. It hasn't quite reached maybe the same achievements that the Soviet Russia, Union or the US have, but it started a lot later, so it has moved very quickly. What was it they were saying in Chinese?
It's like a late comer. It's like come later but arrive earlier.
Yeah.
So that could be really cool.
Yeah. So there's a lot of breakthroughs, a lot of effort, a lot of focus. I mean, just the fact that they're having one of these group interviews here at the CPC National Congress Media Center about this. Clearly, there's a big focus on science and technology, and we keep hearing about it all the time. The government is putting a big emphasis on it, and we keep hearing about innovations and companies and startups. And
because they are bringing together government officials and leading bosses of the leading companies, and also the university, the headmasters of the universities. So they're bringing these people together to actually trying to make them work together, because in the days before it it could be hard for them to collaborate. You know, government speaks their own language, and the scientists, of course, also speaks their own language. So it's hard for them to understand each other. But nowadays, since they know each other more and they were brought to each other more, so they eventually start talking. So this fusion of the government and the institute is finally happening. One of those delegates from Shanxi province, who's really excited about this, he said you know. In the 18th Congress 5 years ago, in 2012, Xi Jinping himself mentioned that they want to like fusion or convergent those institutes, universities, and government together. But for this year, just a couple of days ago, Xi Jinping made another address on the Congress. So in that address, he said it's a deeper convergence into for these institutes. So and that Shanxi delegate is really excited about this because he worked in the scientific area for 31 years, and now he's in the government for 5 years. So he's the one worked in both areas, and he's now really happy to see that the things is actually getting merged together. So it could be really great. So he looked very forward to the outcome of this, but you know, it could be hard to achieve because China has a large bureaucracy system, and that system can be hard to change. And you know, after all these years' efforts, there are still some things that people are complaining about. So it could be really hard for them to do this, like you know, how to actually, you know, China promised, the party promised to let the people who made the effort take the credit.
Right.
But how to specifically achieve this?
Yeah.
You know, you need laws. Maybe you need regulations to actually force people to do that. To create a good system. That could require hard effort, and that is what China's Ministry of Science and Technology is now busy doing. So this is their main focus. Actually, it is mentioned by President Xi Jinping. So it's called top-level design.
Okay.
If I remember it right, the top-level design. So they want to first create a suitable system to China, and then ask the developers to join in to do the work. This is very rare for the country because, you know, in China, the more normal process will be serious things happen, and then, you know, the better system comes in. But this time they're doing it beforehand. So this is a big difference. You know, scientific and technology can be really interesting. That is why I'm now, you know, in this section, because I love this. And this is what makes China a bit different from other areas. So,
and there's a lot of, I mean, this is definitely a place for innovation. You always see so much coming out of China these days, and even, you know, they were also talking about there are such big concepts, you know, that you can deal with, you know, particle accelerators or space, but there's also very human things, like things that everybody would be interested in, like driverless cars.
Things we can use. Driverless cars, because that topic has been on for quite a while. Because you know, everyone wants that, because you know, the car can drive itself, so you can, you know, be free in the car to do what you want instead of driving the car carefully. So but now so China is also trying to invest into this area, but you know, it could be hard. So because for a car, for the AI in the car to recognize what is happening around it, it could be really hard, and there are already accidents on this. Because you know that for assistance driving devices like Tesla's you know, Model X, I think, or Model S in Beijing, there's an accident that the car is not correctly recognizing what is around it. It's like in the front there is a white colored truck. But at the same time, there are light coming from the back of the truck. So everything's lit up, everything become white. So the car failed to recognize there is a truck there. So the car hit directly into the truck. So so this kind of bugs in the system may lead to serious consequences. So there are still long ways to go. That's why, you know, the major car makers are nowadays calling their system assistance driving instead of automatically driving. But still, China is still there was still hope remaining in China that they could develop a whole a totally driverless car. So the vice minister had just promised that in front of the reporters.
Well, that's exciting. I mean, I think it's going to take me a little while to get used to the idea of driverless cars.
Yeah, even the idea itself.
Yes, I think I will wait for a little while for people to use those cars and for it to go well before I start doing this as well.
Yeah, more and more people are trying to adapt to that.
Yeah, but it's exciting, and that's and it's a sign of how much China is doing in innovation in science and technology.
The concept is cool, but
exactly. But things move so quickly in this area, right? So
there are already a lot of Chinese companies are trying to develop this. Because I joined a meeting I think last month by the major car makers in the country, and they also talk about this. This is one of their main focus. The second focus is the other focus is the new energy cars, because the cars that use electricity instead of fossil fuels. So, but still, the AI-driven driverless car is a really cool idea that they all want to join. And I think there are more news coming in the international from the global scale. Because Tesla is revealing its truck, right? It's revealing its semi truck. So that could be really interesting. Because for electricity cars, people will automatically think that it is just a car. It may not have enough power to transport a large quantity of loads, but now Tesla is trying to change that with a real heavy car, heavy truck.
Because usually the idea is always that you can only drive for like a certain distance or for a few hours, and then you have to plug it in.
You have to plug it in.
So that'll be really interesting if they can do that also with a really heavy duty vehicle.
Yeah, that could make people think there is a leap in this technology.
Exactly. But I mean, I'm sure we're going to see a lot more innovation coming from here and from elsewhere. But
some Chinese companies are also building these trucks, but not that large. And maybe just smaller trucks that could bring.
Going to have competition very soon.
Let's hope so.
Yeah. Well, I think sadly, they'll be closing down here soon.
The lights are being closed down.
They've already set up everything for the press conferences tomorrow, and they've been cleaning up and tidying, and they've been turning off the lights gradually.
So maybe it's the time for us to leave this area.
Yes, but thanks for telling us more about this this really interesting topic. And there'll be a lot more group interviews, press conferences, more events happening here. We're only halfway through the 19th CPC National Congress, so there'll be a lot more coming, and we'll be covering it all for you on CGTN. So stay tuned, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining. Goodbye.
Thanks. Bye. Good night.